Hey Quilties, it's Karen Marchetti. This time on Dual Process, Eva Birch and myself are working on a double Irish chain quilt. We both have an idea for you, so grab your printable and we'll get started. Hey guys, it's Karen. So for my version of the double Irish chain, it's mostly just some pebbles and some curved lines, and it's going to go together real super smoothly. So I would start pretty much in my workable space, which I'm going to assume we'll be able to do this in 3 passes. Okay, so I'm going to start up here, and I'm just going to put 3 little pebbles through these center blocks, just using them to travel along. Okay, as far as I can go in my pass, and I'm going to draw myself a line so I know where I'm stopping. It's a little harder when you're drawing it on the screen. When it's on your frame, you know how far you can go. And then we'll come back up this side. And these don't have to be perfect. If you need to chalk a line through there, you can do that as well, and then stitch over your chalk line. Whatever works best for you. You know the routine. If it doesn't work right for you, it's not your way. And then we'll travel down this side. Again, just 3 little pebbles. Continue this over here. And I hate to say, if you're not real good at pebbles, you'll be great at pebbles after you do this. And now we have to do the other diagonal lines. So we'll start over here. We'll tie off and restart. Just putting our little pebbles in there. Now when you get to this one, you're just going to travel across the center one that's already there. Just putting the pebbles through that straight line. Or not through the straight line, diagonally through that set of squares. And we'll continue this down here. Again, just go around the one that's already there, traveling around it. Over to here, change direction, and come back up that other side. So it goes a little faster than you think when you're stitching it. Takes a little longer to draw than stitch. Traveling around the one that's already there. And we'll finish up this set right here. Oops. Okay, there we go. So one thing I do want to mention before I get too deep in drawing this, let me erase this line, is you'll notice in the drawing I've already done, the center, this area and this area are directional. And I want to explain that before we get started, because you'll see at the top and bottom there's 2 squares, and on the side there's 1. And in the second row, the sides have the double square, and on the top and bottom it has a single square. And that's kind of how it changes the design just a little bit to make it kind of directional. And you'll see as I draw it. We're not to that point yet. Of course, leave it to me to keep you confused. But I just wanted to point that out now. While I was thinking about it, I didn't want to forget that part. So the next part is, again, kind of monotonous. But we're doing the continuous curve in these areas here. Right here. And then just bounce back up. And again, this stitch is much faster than it draws. We'll do this in all the areas. Around here. So lots of little tie-offs, but I hate to say that that comes with custom quilting. Okay, we tie off again, stitch this one, around, just filling in all those little chains with the continuous curve. You get here, you'll go back the other direction. I'm filling that in. And then we would repeat that for all of these areas as well. So I'll bring you back in 1 second once that's done. Okay, so now all the continuous curve on this pass has been done. So now we're going to go to the arced areas. So I'm going to start on these outside edge ones, and we're starting in the center, going to the center of that block, and then back down to the center, and then we're just going to echo right up to here and back out, and then fill this with pebbles. So super easy. You would probably want to use a ruler for those long curves. We'll repeat that in the outside areas in this pass. Okay, so starting in the corner, going to there, back out, echoing to there and back, filling with the pebbles. And pebbles take much longer to draw than they do to stitch. And then you could travel through your seam, repeat here, echo to here. And again, if you were using a ruler, that would stay, they'd all look the same. I'm just drawing in freehand, so they're not going to look exactly the same. But if you were using a curved ruler, it would be perfect. Because you're stopping right on that seam line. Right on that seam line. Okay, so we'll continue and I'll finish these other two real fast, and then we'll get to the larger areas. So again, to the center, back out, stop on the seam line and back, fill with pebbles. And then stitch around the seam to this one, over to the center, down to there, back, fill with the pebbles. Okay. All right, now these two blocks, like I was saying before, this is the doubles at the top and the bottom. So I'm going to do that. I'll start here in the center of the double, and I'll go over to the side and come back down in the center of the double, over to this side, back up, stop there, all the way down, stop there, all the way back. So this is why I say they're directional. When I do this one, you'll see the difference. Okay, from here, I'm going to fill my pebbles and just come back to where I started and tie off. Fill this with pebbles. And if you didn't want to do pebbles, you can just do swirlies or loopies, whatever you want to do in there. I just like how the pebbles are cohesive with the pebbles that we did in the straight lines. And on this one again, starting here, over, always starting on the double block. To the line, all the way down to the line and back, fill with pebbles. And once we're done filling with the pebbles, then we're going to roll the quilt. Okay, so now we can roll the quilt. We're going to do this section. Okay, so I'm going to roll the quilt. And I'm going to, normally I would repeat the same thing. I would do the pebbles and then the continuous curve and then the fills. But I want to share with you how this one is directional. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to show you, we're going to stitch up to the center of the middle, back over to the double, center to the double. And you see how the direction changes. So when the double's at the top and the bottom, your diamond is more this shape. And when the doubles are on the side, your diamond is this shape. And I hope that makes sense to you. But if you remember to always start with the double square, it'll make it a little easier. So then we'll fill that with the pebbles. Fill that all in. Okay, so then I would do this one here, starting here, up to the center, to here, down to the center, back, do my echoes, and then fill with pebbles. And again, it would be much straighter if we were using a ruler. But you get the idea. And you also see that the ruler will make it a lot straighter. And then we'll do this one while we're here, up to here, down, back, and then our echo, and then fill with the pebbles. As long as you remember that to start the diamond where the double blocks are. So again, after that roll, I'm just going to show you real fast. This one would start here and go here to here. So it changes the direction of the center diamond. That's the only difference. Okay, so then, oh, let me get rid of that. Put my line there. And then I will go back and do the pebble chains and then the continuous curve in this area, and then roll and then do this area. So I will do that. It's going to take me a little while, and I will bring you back at the end. It's just that first row repeating, all of this repeating and repeating. Okay, so I'll bring you back when I'm done. Okay, so now we're on that last row, and we're just going to repeat, filling in with the curved lines, ruler work, and the pebbles. And then we'll stitch over to here and do that half one, fill with pebbles. So it was a lot to get us here, but it's mostly repetitive. I don't want to say it's monotonous, but it kind of is. It's the same thing over and over again, but it really makes a cool looking quilt. And that's what's important in the end. Took a lot to get there, but the final look is pretty awesome. Okay, so there is the quilt. The one thing you have to remember though is where those double bars are is the direction of your diamonds. And that's just the one thing you keep in mind as you're stitching it. Wherever you have the double blocks, that's where your diamonds the point comes from. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Take care.
Hi, I'm Eva Birch. Thank you for joining me today. So today's quilt is a double Irish chain, and it's considered a very traditional pattern. We have all those squares that create a chain as it goes throughout the quilt, but we have also those nice open spaces. So I decided, because I like traditional quilting, to stick with the traditional vibe for this quilt. I went ahead and went to the Pattern Cloud store and typed in double Irish chain, triple Irish chain, anything that would bring up some patterns that are suitable for this open space right here. So I found this triple Irish chain anniversary feather pattern, and that is by Lori Thomas, and I thought that would lend itself very nicely. I resized the pattern, and I can make sure that this lines up very nicely here on the seam line. It's nice and centered. I resized it to make sure it fits the space very well. But I also need half of the design. And generally, I would bring the design on the CAD screen. I would go to Notes View, and I would start dividing that out. But as you can see, this is such a complex pattern that in this case, I don't think that's the way to go. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this pattern and decide on a different alternative to create that half pattern. So I have a couple of different options. I can bring my pattern over to the CAD screen, can make sure that it's lined up. I'm going to make it a little bit tinier right here. And it looks like it's lined up very nicely. So if this is the outside of the quilt right here, this is going to be my parameter, and I can either go ahead and draw a trim, and I can start that right here. And it would stitch right along that seam line. So that is one option. And if you have your settings set correctly, it would, even with the trim, just stitch along that seam line. But if you prefer to use fill, then you can click out a boundary and fill outside. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to draw a quick boundary. Come up here. And I can fill outside. So I created half of the pattern, and because the half patterns are all right along the edge of the quilt, even though it'll backtrack some, it's okay because my binding will cover that up. If I'm concerned that things are being cut off, I can also, when I click out my boundary, come in 1/4 inch if that's important to me. But then I will take this pattern and I will, let me just grab that. And I can save it as that. I can also rotate it, but it doesn't really matter too much because I'm going to need this pattern in different directions. So I might as well just go ahead and save that. And I can add the word half to it. And now I have that pattern available to me. And now I can place that pattern right there on my seam line. And of course, then I would rubber stamp the pattern. And while it's still attached to my mouse, I can rotate it and fill all of those in. And then can adjust them depending. There we go. All right, you get the idea. So we filled in some of the area, but now of course we have all those squares. So for the white squares, I'm going to just do a simple line. I'm going to select draw line, and I can go all the way across. Of course, we're doing this just in SAM. And I think those are all the lines I'm gonna do with the draw line. So now we have the gray squares left. And what I did, I went ahead and created a curve using draw arc to fit in those gray squares. And then I can simply use draw pattern to draw into those gray squares. And that is probably an efficient way to move all the way across. And you would do that in all your quiltable area. That is one thing that you'd have to figure out based on your quiltable space. So I would mark out, because I don't want to click out too much in order to consider the shrinkage. Because for that particular pattern, I find that it's important that we need to make sure that they match up very nice at the intersection. So I want to take my time, because if I don't, then the pattern, and I'm gonna just go back here so you can see what that will look like. It's a little orange peel design that we're drawing. And it will turn out much nicer if you really hit those intersections. Of course, if you were placing that on an actual quilt, you would do that on your quilt with your machine head. So using draw pattern, once you've created the arc for your specific shape, is a quick way of clicking this out and then stitching it all continuous. That is the main goal. Okay, I'm going to end right here. I did try to create a block for the design for the entire square, so I could also use that, but then I'm unable to do draw pattern. I literally would have to place them. I have to size that properly, but I find I'm gonna place it down here so you can see it better. I find you doing it, I could rubber stamp that also, but then I probably have to do a lot more adjusting using my handles or nodes. And I find that by using draw patterns, for me anyhow, it is much more precise, because I can click right at the intersections of the squares as I'm drawing with my arc. So that is up to you how you want to address those gray squares. But here is a finished image where everything was placed, and I find that that would be a really pretty combination of designs for our double Irish quilt. So I hope you have some fun with it. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Dual Process and were inspired to create your own mock-ups with your patterns. We'll see you next time.